Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and honor to introduce the 23rd Secretary of the Army, Secretary Esper. He is a former soldier. He served on active duty and then in the National Guard and Reserves before retiring from the Reserves in 2007. He has extensive Pentagon and Capitol Hill experience, and he has taught defense and strategic studies at the university level. He recently served in the defense industry before coming to our Army. He is by far one of the most familiar leaders with our career field, and he has worked in think tanks, led associations, and been a leader, communicating throughout his extensive career. He is well suited to help guide the communications enterprise into the future. Sir, we look forward to hearing from you and your view of the communications enterprise for our Army today.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thanks, everyone. Please have a seat. Thank you. I didn't think I was going to be able to make my way out of that curtain right there. How's everybody doing today? All right, that sounds pretty good. Sounds a little bit like the Navy, though. Y'all can do better than that, right? How you doing today? Okay, very good. Okay, well, look, good afternoon, everyone. It's great for me to be here today. I'm really feel privileged to be here to have a discussion with you. I'm going to give some opening remarks, but really the fun part things I'll talk about here in the next 10 minutes or so. General Hanna, where are you? Thanks again for hosting today's forum. You have a tremendous schedule, and I've had a chance to read through it as we discussed, and it looks like a great few days here. This is really a fantastic opportunity for us to talk about, as I said, the state of public affairs, functional area, and how we will take it to the next level, okay? Does anyone know, by the way, who the first Army public affairs officer was? No. Late. I'll tell you who I think it was. I'll give you a hint. In 1776. That's right, so it's not MacArthur. When the Continental Army was on its heels, retreating across New Jersey, after a series of losses in the face of British pressure, he penned an article that started with these famous words, quote, "These are the times that try men's souls." Thomas Paine joined the Army during what was called the Black Time of 1776, when the Americans faced a series of difficult defeats around New York. As a man who knew how very important public support was for the war effort, he became increasingly concerned that Americans might draw the wrong lessons from these initial setbacks. Paine recognized that the tactical defeats on the battlefield were a consequence of some early mistakes the Americans had made. And if you recall your history, support was beginning to wane in the colonies for Washington and his army. Paine feared, however, that the public might see them as, quote, proceeding from a natural inability to support its cause against the enemy, and might have sunk under the despondency of that misconceived idea. In other words, the Continental Army and the colonists who supported them were losing hope. In Paine's mind, the Army needed a message, one that would reverse the defeatist narrative and serve as a call to arms to rally support for the Revolution's cause. The pamphlet he wrote, titled "The American Crisis," began like this: "These are the times that try men's souls. The summer soldier and the sunshine patriot will, in this crisis, shrink from the service of his country. But he that stands, it now deserves the love and thanks of man and woman. Tyranny, like hell, is not easily conquered. Yet we have this consolation with us, that the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph." Paine's pamphlet hit the printing presses in Philadelphia and began spreading throughout the colonies. Commanders read Paine's words to their men before they marched off to battle. Militiamen who had previously left the Army rejoined, and politicians used the message to regain popular support for the Revolution. Soldiers, civilians, merchants, farmers, leaders in the Army, and members of the Continental Congress united behind this message, which inspired hope and called for action. Now, there are a few important things to understand about Paine's message and the great revival that followed. First, it grew from defeat, not victory. Second, it was timely, it was succinct, and it was clear. Third, he knew his audiences. This was both an internal to the Army message and an external message to the colonists. Fourth, he had the trust of his commander. He worked on Washington's staff. In short, in the face of extreme adversity, a persuasive message that was effectively communicated helped turn the tide of the war. That is the power of what you all do as Army communicators. So, the first change that General Hanna and I are considering is to redesignate this functional area from public affairs to Army communications. The term public affairs, in my mind, does not accurately describe what we need you doing for the Army on a daily basis. It sounds to me very industrial and very reactive. First of all, we communicate not just to the public, but to a variety of audiences, both internal and external. Every message we produce must be persuasive, it must be accurate, it must be succinct, and it must be timely. And it must reach the intended audiences. Changing the functional area's name is more than just an attempt to rebrand. I'm looking for a fundamental change in how we communicate, in how we approach communications. This requires us to adapt to keep up with the changing times. In the past, and this is from my perch as secretary in D.C., and it's obviously not true across the board, but in the past, we've been more reactive than I prefer, primarily focused on responding to media queries. Going forward, we must be more proactive, anticipating and creating opportunities where we can shape and advance the Army's message. In the past, we've oftentimes been slow to communicate, vetting everything through multiple layers of bureaucracy for fear of responding without the highest levels of approval. Going forward, we must be quicker to communicate, more timely, by powering down authority to the appropriate level. In the past, we've oftentimes been too focused on coordination and logistics when scheduling media engagements. Going forward, we must still do that, but I need you to put most of your effort into shaping the engagement before the interview or briefing ever happens. Remember, the storytelling starts long before the commander gets up behind the podium, and that storyteller is you. And in the past, and General Hanna and I have discussed this as well, I know that you often have not been as closely integrated with the rest of the staff as you should be, resulting in PAOs sometimes who are undervalued by their commanders. Going forward, you must be synchronized with the staff, developing communications plans that are operationally relevant and aligned with the commander's objectives. And it's going to be mine and the chief's jobs to make sure that commanders appreciate what you do, the role you play. And you must deliver real demonstrable value. In all that you do, we must be focused on communication by asking ourselves what message needs to be delivered to which audience, at what time, in what format, and through what medium. A new mindset is absolutely necessary as we move forward. The information environment is increasing in complexity. The timelines are coming down to hours and minutes, and communications will only become more important in the years ahead. We must stay on the offense. Reacting from a defensive crouch is a losing proposition, and I know you all know that. You know, when I speak to members of the Pentagon Press Corps, they often tell me that the Army is the slowest service to respond when they have questions. That has to change. Delays breed suspicion, which inevitably takes the form of skepticism, which often all but guarantees a negative spin to whatever we put out. We need to build trust with the media by providing accurate information on time and engaging them constantly. And not just you, but your commanders as well. And if we don't have complete trust in the information, then consider going on background, off the record, other things that you can do. In some ways, in minor ways, I'd rather see us make some mistakes than be perpetually behind the curve or lose that trust with the media. You know, we exercise mission command throughout the Army, encouraging our subordinates to exercise discipline initiative. For our communications officers, it should not be any different. We should power down to each of you. To help prepare Army communicators for this new role, we need to relook the education, training, and professional development opportunities we offer. Other functional areas have programs that provide officers with advanced civil schooling and industry internships. For Army communication officers, we are going to institute a similar program that provides select officers with an advanced communications degree from Georgetown University, followed by a one-year internship with industry. The details of the program are still being worked out, but my intent is to ensure that we are giving our communicators the right education and the right experience needed to succeed. We also need to be very selective in who we bring into the functional area. Army communicators will be engaging with the media, the American public, and many, many others. They can have a major impact on the Army's brand and reputation. Doing this effectively requires top talent. So as you continue to discuss the future of the Army communications here today, I want you to begin charting a new course forward. And the first task I want you to complete is to update your mission statement. I've read through your functional area publication. What is it that the functional area must do to be successful? You need to ask yourself that question. What is the core role of Army communications in support of the Army? The mission statement will set the tone for how we select, develop, and employ Army communications officers, so we need to get this right. Making improvements to this functional area begins with you, the people in this room. You all have a great opportunity to influence the future and your future. Do not be constrained by the past or be afraid to challenge the status quo. Think deeply about how you can deliver persuasive, accurate, succinct, and timely information to the right audiences to best advance the commander's agenda, much like Thomas Paine did in 1776. So I look forward to watching your progress because I'm a big believer in this functional area and the value of it and all that you do day in and day out. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.